I was walking over last Saturday. I went to the Irish Powerlifting Championships. I think it was called IPL, and they hosted it here in Galway. So when I'm in Galway, I go to rugby games, GAA, that's the Irish sports of hurling and football and handball, and weightlifting. I go to any event I can. And I walked over there, and I couldn't get a cab. Something bad had happened. It was a fair walk. So I walked there in a just torrential rainstorm. And it was interesting because as I walked, I started thinking about my workshops in the past year, talking about cueing people and then versus coaching people. Just to review, if you have an exercise that lasts 2 minutes, there's no movement, like a plank, you can probably give the person 3 to 5 cues. Like if I was doing the push-up position plank, the cues would be, grip and rip the ground, really squeeze the ground hard, crush your armpits so hard that if you had grapes in there, it'd turn into wine, squeeze your knees together, squeeze your heels together. Those are all cues, but coaching is something a little different. Coaching is when you take the athlete aside and you either review the movement. I was about to say replay the movement and then foreplay it, but then I realized it to be an issue with the second word. But you review what just happened, and then you kind of preview the fixes and the ideas and remind the athlete, we went over this 3 years ago. We worked on this 2 days ago. We practiced this. Or, hey, that's on me. We need to do a better job doing this, this, and this. So cueing is sometimes a very quick word or two. Whereas the true coaching is, the cliche's been the 30,000 foot view, the big picture, you get real high and you look down. Cueing is in the moment. Coaching is big picture. And I think a lot of people, especially when I watch young personal trainers, they mix those two up. They talk to someone in performance. Well, if someone's talking to you, you have to process all that through your brain. And the problem is you often don't have time to do a movement and process information, and there's no way you're going to make a correction. Well, what got me thinking is about my 2 favorite cues are squeeze and stay tall. And it was interesting because on the way there, all of a sudden, this whole movement matrix that I've been coaching for a long time, all of a sudden I started to see that stay tall is probably the key coaching point I make in everything I do. So if we're doing a kneeling plank, again, you can go to my YouTube account if you don't know the exercises. But if you do a kneeling plank, one of the things we're trying to teach you is to stay tall. We're also trying to test your hip flexors to make sure they're flexible enough. Find out if you know how to use your butt to stay strong. There's a thing called a vertical plank. You put your hands in that kind of Frankenstein's monster position, and then you pull down. Well, that teaches the ab wall to contract, the butt to contract, and to teach to stay tall. Oddly, when you look at the hip thrust this way, right from here, you'll notice that it's a kneeling plank just flipped over. So the hip thrust is a stay tall. The goblet squat finishes in a stay tall. The swing finishes in a stay tall. A very good American Olympic lifting coach by the name of Joe Mills used to basically teach his athletes that the key was to stay tall. And of course, squeeze is what your muscles can only do one thing, and that's contract. I guess they could try to not contract too. That would be the opposite. But so every time you lift or move or do anything, you squeeze. But one of the hard things to teach people, besides stay tall, is to learn to stay tight, to squeeze, to lock down. And as I was walking, I've been working on this ever since, so it's been 3 or 4 or 5 days. I've been working on putting together this idea into some kind of intelligent, readable concept that would be, and here's the funny thing about this, once you look at it, it becomes so apparent and obvious. People go, well, sure, yeah. Well, if it's so sure, yeah, why hasn't anyone ever said this basically before? Which is an issue you get a lot of times in my field. The simple, the beautiful, and the elegant, the masterful are always obvious. It's the other nonsense that isn't so much. And of course, I think most of it's nonsense.